Is the long play album dead? Is there still value for an artist to continue to record a cohesive album of like songs, or should they just release singles? Let's drop the needle on that discussion right now. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock here with your latest pop fix. Every week, as you know, we go in depth on the greatest songs in pop history with the writers and the artists who created them. So over the last year, I've read quite a few articles on the death of the long play album and how artists and fans just need to accept it and move on. I've seen this frequently over the last 5 years especially. So I'm wondering, does the long play album still matter? Please share why or why not in the comments below and become part of this discussion. Here's my take. Right now, it's true. We live in a stream-driven market, not unlike the 1940s or 50s when the single ruled the airwaves and ears across the globe. Currently, most people get their music from playlists and Spotify, Pandora, Apple Music, what have you. So there was an article quite recently in Forbes that said that we live in a singles world today. No longer does anyone consistently sit down and listen to a 40 or 50-minute album back-to-back songs like they used to. I gotta tell you, this is really troubling for me, and it should be a major concern for anyone who has more than a passing interest in music. If you just listen to music to be in the background while you're doing your homework or while you're jamming with your friends or whatever, great. But if you listen to music because it means something to you, it gives you meaning in life and motivates you and is the reason that blood runs through your veins, this has got to be number one priority for you to listen to this discussion and get involved. If artists stop creating a full body of work, a batch of like songs that usually mark the moment or the inspiration or state of mind that they're in, instead, they just concentrate on releasing a single every 6 months or so, it's going to drastically change creativity in the world that we live in. I know, things have changed, and it's correct that the younger generation probably doesn't sit down and listen to a full album song by song. Or do they? Think about it. CD sales have definitely declined, but vinyl sales have had double-digit growth for the last 8 straight years. Now, granted, they still only make up about 6% of total music revenue, but it's definitely on the rise, especially with young people. Personally, I still believe in the long play album, and I'm going to do everything in my power to promote, instill, and plead with people to plink down their cash for an experience that streaming random songs in a playlist just can't give. Every night when I put my kids to bed, instead of reading them the same old bedtime stories, I tell them about a time, not so long ago, when music wasn't in a cloud. I tell them about a time when I would hear a song on the radio, and once it was over, could not immediately hear it again by searching it on my phone and streaming it or Shazamming or what have you. Some of you remember this. You had one of two options. You'd either have to call the DJ up and request it, waiting ever so patiently so that you could quickly record it on your boombox on one of your Maxell recordable tapes, remember those? And you'd just hope and pray that the DJ wouldn't talk over the beginning or the ending of it, which almost never happened. These DJs, they love to talk over the track. Or I would save every last cent of my meager allowance or money earned moving sprinkler pipe. I grew up in Blackfoot, Idaho, the potato capital of the world, and I'd ride my bike down to the market and get the cassette tape or the vinyl. And let me tell you something. I can't tell you how incredible that exchange felt. Exchanging money for a vinyl record that held the grooves that could crumble castles. Exchanging crumpled up bills for a cassette tape that once paid for I'd rip open in a flash, hammered in my overused Walkman with a force that shook the world. Can you remember that feeling? What satisfaction I felt pedaling home as the sound of the cymbals began to drive the distinct instrumentation that led into the massive, life-changing first vocals of the 1986 masterpiece Red Rain. as this heavenly music filled my soul. I felt my bicycle flying higher than Elliot in E.T., but better than having E.T. in my bicycle basket. Peter Gabriel and his breathtaking album, So were my companions. If I bought the vinyl, I'd pedal harder than Lance Armstrong to get to my house, rush to my room, close the door, cram my fingernails into the slight opening between the cardboard pieces, sliding that beautiful black vinyl out of its cover, gently placing it on the platter while pulling the handle over and letting the needle make love to the grooves. Maybe I'm going overboard or being overdramatic, which I'm want to be, but as Pearl Jam would say later on, spin the black circle. Indeed, the crackle was divine. The music that was generated to my ears always felt like the first time I'd ever heard pop music, no matter how many times I've repeated that process, whether it was Bon Jovi, Slippery When Wet, Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA, Prince, Purple Rain, Phil Collins, No Jacket Required, Journey, Escape, U2, The Joshua Tree, Billy Joel, The Stranger, Fleetwood Mac, Rumors, REM, Life's Rich Pageant, Janet Jackson, Control, Wham, Make It Big, Michael Jackson, Thriller, The Smiths, The Queen Is Dead. I loved it all. Or later, when I would discover all of the great music from the 60s like Pet Sounds or Sgt. Pepper, Blonde on Blonde, just to name but a few. Hearing music in this way has always been the purest definition of what it feels like to be truly alive, truly awake, present, connected to this universe. Anyone who grew up in my generation or the one before or soon after knows exactly what I'm talking about. It was my religion. It still is. Oh, and by the way, if the future really does give way to the headlines, like the Forbes article that says the music album is dead, but no one can accept it. If this happens, taking into account the album examples that I just gave, you think about it, songs like Prince's The Beautiful One, Scenes from an Italian Restaurant, I Just Wasn't Made for These Times by the Beach Boys, A Day in the Life by the Beatles, Visions of Johanna from Bob Dylan, Stone in Love, Journey, Mercy Street, Running to Stand Still These Days, The Chain by Fleetwood Mac, No Surrender by Springsteen. You get the point. They probably don't exist, or maybe they never get played or heard. Who out there is trying to force a rule that says that music needs to be created to reach the lowest common denominator? Seriously, it's incredibly frustrating when commerce tramples all over art. It's time for us to dig a little deeper because there will come a time when technology will destroy us. It's already happening. Try not to get frustrated here, but I refuse to read these articles that talk about this. And they're usually written by people who haven't sung or written or produced one note of music, by the way. But most of the greatest artists in history are far more known for their albums than their singles. And we're better off for it. Bob Dylan, anyone? Even Springsteen. If you take away Born in the USA, which had 7 top 10 hits, Bruce has had a handful of singles that charted before and after, but he's definitely an albums artist. And again, can you picture a world without the album? No Nebraska, no Darkness on the Edge of Town, which without those, myself and thousands of other humans on the planet are different people altogether. We were lucky in the 80s because for a lot of artists, Michael Jackson, Prince, Bruce, Billy Joel, Def Leppard, Journey, Janet Jackson, Madonna, Bon Jovi, Phil Collins, most of their releases were really like greatest hits albums because they had so many amazing songs. There's something so magical about the physical album that Spotify and Pandora can just never compete with. It's all about convenience. Do we really want convenience to take over the way we feel about art? Like the amazing treasure hunt of going to the record store, exploring every stack, every bin, discovering artists from the art of the album cover and having long philosophical conversations about Pink Floyd or Rush with the Clerks, searching with valor for that one Morrissey or Smith's B-side that had eluded me and so many others. I mean, an artist releasing a new record, that used to be an event. We used to count the days to the world premiere video on MTV. and prepare with the greatest of anticipation for the big day that the album would finally drop to the public. I mean, how many of you, like me, cut school to be the first one in line, feeling your heart skip a beat when the clerk opened that gate to your local Music Land or Sam Goody, and remembering how wonderful it felt holding the new U2 or Morrissey album in your hands? Digital music, it doesn't compare. It's a joy that words simply cannot describe. To create the next great long play album was once one of the greatest aspirations an artist or producer could ever strive for. In talking with Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees and Songwriting Hall of Fame recipients and power couple Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil, who wrote some of the greatest songs in history, by the way, including We Gotta Get Out of This Place on Broadway, Somewhere Out There, and the most listened to song of the 20th century, You've Lost That Love and Feeling, they shared their feelings about this. Let's check it out.
It was like a great record produced by a great producer, great singers, and a great song. They all meshed. You know?
Yeah, it was just the perfect marriage of every entity that makes a record.
And that's fortunate when you can have that happen.
But now it's a completely different songwriting business. And, you know, people write tracks, and now they call the melodic line the top line. It's no longer a song, it's a top line.
So
and then they give it out to different lyricists to write lyrics and see who they like the best. And it's a soulless way of songwriting.
The thing that I miss so much is, you know, as a kid, either having the cassette or the product, the physical product, putting that record on and looking, you know, picking up a record like this, the Righteous Brothers, you know, and looking at the cover and the back and reading the liner notes. The new generation is missing out on that, you know? It's really sad, you know, because I think that it gives you a conduit into the music, you know, a snapshot of what, who wrote this song and who, you know, because I always used to listen to the Top 40 Countdown with Casey Kasem. He would tell a story behind the song and talk about, you know, Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil, and they wrote these great songs in the 60s, and then he'd play a song, and that connected you to all of that music, and now that's missing.
That's great. I think what you're doing is just fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
It really is. It's great.
You know, and we got to keep these songs going in people's minds. Recently, I was talking to Aaron Bruno, the front man of AWOL Nation, about his newest record, which is called Here Come the Runts. Great record. And he was explaining the genesis behind the album as a whole. Told me about like every intricate detail from its origin, what music he was listening to that helped inspire it, where his psyche was at the time, you know, his thinking on the album cover and how it related to the songs he put together as a unit, his take on the theme that ran through it. He had this passion, this ambition, his feelings that he put into this, and I really admired his hunger to convey his thoughts sonically to his audience. He's an artist who really cares about his message and how it is delivered by the song. I'm telling you right now, our culture cannot afford to lose this. With this weighing heavily on my mind, I was also talking to singer-songwriter Don McLean. Of course, wrote American Pie, one of the greatest songs of all time, and Vincent, another great song. I asked him on his thoughts about the death of the LP, and he said,
"That's where the art is. It's perverse to take just a hit and throw away the art. That's perversion. That is the essence of perversion. Like I said, it's sex without love."
It's like sex without love. What a great quote. In closing, I want to share a conversation that I had with Grammy-winning multi-platinum singer-songwriter Richard Marx, who himself is in the record books for being the first solo artist to have his first 7 singles hit the top 5 on the Billboard Hot 100. They went to 3, 3, 2, 1, 1, and 4. His record sales worldwide exceed 30 million. So I've interviewed hundreds of artists over the years about music, and Richard, I mean, he's one of the funniest and most well-spoken individuals I've ever sat down with. He summed up the problems in the music industry as succinctly as I've ever heard. Check this out.
I've always loved that song, and that was when B-sides were important. And I didn't want to burn my own song, because any song that's a B-side is like telegraphing to everybody that it's not good enough to be on the album or whatever.
Right.
So I would just do covers, because I don't ever do covers unless they're B-sides. And it's no disrespect to the song. They're songs I've always wanted to sing, But that's what I'll put on. That's what I always used to put on.
Well,
B-side.
that's what's sad is, you know, I remember going to record stores and you would try to find that single, that maxi single, whatever it was, to get that B-side that you wouldn't be able to get. And now that's kind of a lost art because you can just get anything, anywhere, anytime.
Everything is available everywhere.
Yep. And in some ways, it kind of takes the value away from music, because I've got a 14-year-old and a 15-year-old. They go through stuff so quick. You know, they hear a song they like, they Shazam it.
Yeah.
They go to Wikipedia and then they're on to the next one. Whereas, you know, with your record, you know, I could sit and I'd listen, like I know the album tracks, you know, that were never released. And now that's kind of lost a little bit.
I have a theory about all that, which is when I was a kid, music was this big. You know, it was a 12-inch album.
Yeah.
And when you were a teenager, CDs, right?
Early 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your music was that big. And now you can't see it. And I do believe that there is a mental connection with the consumer that when something is so small that you can't even see it, how valuable can it really be? So it's not that people don't care about music, it's just that the value of it has sort of intrinsically gotten so small that there was a correlation, I think. That, and the fact that you can carry everything, like, oh my God, I can carry my entire music collection on my phone.
I know.
It went from that to, I've got everything, it's all on my phone, I don't need to listen, you know?
I got Spotify, I can pull up a song anytime I want.
It's all too easy.
Yeah, and it's like, but I mean, that's why, you know, a record is so cool, because I mean, it's a piece of art, man.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But I don't think that toothpaste is ever going back in the tube. So the question now is, how do we redo? You know, what's the next? We had MTV save the music business for a while. We had CDs save the music business. We had, now we need a new savior. And you know, I think it's up to guys like me to sort of band together and figure out what that's going to be.
Well, that's what we hope this show can help with, that is to teach the younger generation about the Chuck Berrys and the Brian Wilsons and the Richard Marxes, and say, this is why this was so important. And there is a little bit of hope, because records are sold and vinyls are being sold in Barnes & Noble now. Yeah. You know, because of the hipsters, you know, wanting that, like you said, to feel it, touch it.
Yeah, I think we sort of have to implode and be reborn.
Rebuild again? All right. Enough nostalgia. I'm sorry. I give you too much of it sometimes. If you want to have more nostalgia, you can always go to ProfessorRock.com and watch hundreds of mini documentaries on the greatest songs of all time. Just saying. But to sum up, to the writers of the articles that say the album is dead and all the critics and we should just accept it, we won't. And I'll bet that the bands and the artists who create music because it's the reason the blood flows through their veins as opposed to those who create it for fame and power and money, I'll bet the true artists will always put in the blood, sweat, and tears to gift the world a full body of work. I'm not ignorant enough to think that we don't have to innovate. As Gary Vaynerchuk has said many times, innovate or die. So let me pose another question to those who might feel as I do. How do we innovate and keep the long play album alive? So let us know below in the comments. Please share your passion. Let us know. Share this on social media. This is a conversation that we need to have about art, about music. And please subscribe to our channel, because this is very important. We talk about very substantial things when it comes to pop music every week. And if you're passionate about music, we need your fire. We need to hear that. I'm the Professor of Rock, 3 chords and the truth every week. See you next time.